I met George, I think, approximately 1976, I think, in that period of time, when he was looking for a composer for Star Wars, and I think he asked his friend Steven Spielberg who he would recommend, who Steven would recommend to George. And I'd just done Sugarland Express and Jaws with Steven Spielberg. And Steven recommended that I go see George, and I came to see him. He then had an office at Universal Studios, and we chatted. And I remember meeting what I thought was a very young man at the time who'd done American Graffiti. I knew that. I don't think I'd seen it. And he was then, as now, very enthusiastic and a very appealing young man. And I was very happy to do what I thought was going to be a kind of weekend spaceship film, never dreaming that it would have the kind of life and longevity and impact on the public that it's had. I think when he says silent film, he's speaking, at least to me, to a kind of rhythmic and visual energy that you could almost take the text away from and it would still hurtle forward. And it's a kind of rhythmic and kinetic expression that speaks to, I mean, that's what music is about, really, events in time and events in a certain speed or lack of speed. So I don't think he means it in terms of that it doesn't have a sound, but more to the spirit of the action movies of the silent period that didn't depend on a literary or literate text, but action, visual effects, and timing, plus probably music and somebody playing the piano in a theater pit or a little orchestra playing, you know. Music is part of the characterization also of the film. There's melodic identification with a series of characters, which is very typical of opera, really, of the 19th century and earlier. And in that respect, it is part of the storytelling mechanism that the audience receives. Melodic identification for characters or for plot exposition and development, so that we have a sort of oral set of beacons and reference points, much more than the normal contemporary film would have. It makes me enormously fortunate to be working with George, to have the opportunity that this particular genre of film offers. It's almost unique, really, in contemporary. I mean, there are other examples, I suppose. Evita would be another kind of example where this is basically an opera, but I've been uniquely fortunate in having the opportunity to do these films and to, as I've said before, sort of continue to accompany George on this great journey that he's on, which seems now to be a life's work journey with George Lucas. George, over the years, I think, has kept in touch pretty comfortably. I mean, Phantom Menace would be an example of when talking about the process. He probably rang me a year ago to tell me that the time was coming, that his script was going to be ready, and that he was about ready to shoot the film, and that the music would be needed by such and such a time in the calendar. And then I would get another phone call 2 or 3 months later, and he would fix a spotting date where we go in a dark room and talk about where the music is going to go and what it should do, etc. So that I've been sort of on alert from George that he wished me to do this perhaps a year before I did it. The working process is really, again, a kind of classic setup where we run a film that's either empty, that doesn't have any music, or he may have a temporary music track of some classical music or some other film scores, or maybe even some music of mine, put in behind the film to give some kind of impression of what's wanted. And we have a discussion, well, we'll play the music here, we won't play it there, and George will say things like it ought to get quicker here, or softer, or make some gesture here, and then discuss the sort of general contours and choreography for the music. And then I go off to my my studio here at Amblin and down in Los Angeles, some miles away from where George is, and write the score. And that's been the way we've worked. A lot of times you'll get more from a piece than you expected you're going to get. There's more than the sum of the parts there, or sometimes less. And that's the magical part of it. It's an acoustic phenomenon that when you pile all the sounds up with the orchestra, you finally find it in the scene where we've got more than we thought we were going to have here. And we may then have to make some adjustments in other sound effects, for example, that the film is also replete with, full of. It's a good collaboration and a good. George, like his contemporaries, also is technically good. I mean, he owns a studio. He's got recording equipment. He's got a music recording stage. I mean, he's not just a guy that's behind a camera and doesn't think about all of the mécanique of what goes into making a film. He's plugged into all of this. You and I are talking now in 1999, which is over 20 years since the trilogy was started, and it's daunting for me and for any composer, I think, to start any project. You think, well, will I be able to solve the problems? Will I be able to come up with something as good? Can I hit the ball as far as I did the last time at bat, etc.? And that challenge has been there with Phantom Menace. Certainly, it's true. And we have about an hour. We have about 2 hours of music, 120 minutes approximately of music in the film, and I think maybe 10% of that, or even possibly less, comes from the earlier three films. There's a minute and a half of the opening Star Wars music, which we felt was obligatory. And then a half a dozen quotes, I don't think any more than that. A little quote of Yoda, a little quote of the Force theme. There's a quote of Darth Vader's theme somewhere, I think once or twice. But the other overwhelming percentage, like 90% of the music, is new. Anakin's theme, the music for the flag parade, there's a funeral scene, there's the race, there's all this Jar Jar's music, etc., on and on.